Anyway, all right, guys. Tonight I want to talk to you guys about a crazy story in the Old Testament. And I don't know if we're supposed to have favorites, but I love the Old Testament. I used to teach a Sunday school class for high school kids when we were at Lake Fenton High School. How many of you guys actually went to the Sunday school class? Probably just leaders. Oh, a couple kids, all right. And what we would do is we would walk through the Old Testament verse by verse, and it was crazy. When you're growing up in Sunday school class, for me, not you guys, there was felt boards. If you guys even know what that is, probably not. There was like a green felt board, and you'd flip it back, and like, oh, now there's one with clouds, and the teacher, some like super old lady, would walk over and go, this is David, and put the stories on the felt board. And so that's how we learned, but there was only a handful of Old Testament stories that you would actually learn about, and you never got the super crazy stories, which in my experience are the really awesome stories. I think we went through Judges, correct, Michael? Yeah, we went through Judges, and I'm pretty sure we even dumbed it down to being like a PG rating, because there are some crazy stuff in the book of Judges, like a lady kills a guy with a tent stake through his head while he's sleeping, while she put him to sleep with warm milk. It's nuts. Old Testament is awesome. So listen, tonight we're gonna continue on through 1 Kings, which is again in the Old Testament, which is awesome. Last week, Cam talked about Solomon, right? Who can tell me what was the one thing you remember about King Solomon? He was super what? Wise. Who said it? Wise. Solomon was the wisest person who's ever lived, right? Shh, listen. Solomon was the wisest person who ever lived. Well, if you're looking at the hierarchy of the kings, we got King Saul, then David came along, and then David had a kid with Bathsheba, and that kid was Solomon, right? And then after that, we get another person. His name is Rehoboam. The name's continually getting worse, I promise. And they only go worse from there. But Rehoboam is the next king. But in order to get to understanding where he's coming from, I'm gonna go back, and Cam actually mentioned this guy last week. Do you guys remember Cam talking about Jeroboam? I think Cam, you briefly touched on Jeroboam last week. Today I wanna go in a little more detail with Jeroboam. And I'm gonna try and do this the same way I used to teach my Sunday school class, which was, I could read the verses word for word, and you guys can sit there and go, uh-huh. Or I can try and explain to you exactly what's happening inside these verses. So if you do have them, if you want to follow along, we're looking at 1 Kings 11. Towards the second half of it, there's probably a headline in your Bible in bold that says something about the name Jeroboam. All right, now we got the stage set. We've got a hole in the wall of Jerusalem, okay? Solomon has a bunch of workers who are gonna work on rebuilding this wall. Not Nehemiah style, but it's a smaller wall that we're gonna rebuild, okay? One of those guys who's doing this work is named Jeroboam. Jeroboam is a young guy who's super skilled, super good worker, and he's just all around a very impressive young man. So the king sees that and goes, I'm gonna promote you. So Jeroboam gets promoted. He is now the head of all of the forced labor inside the kingdom of Israel, which is like a super high honor for a guy who literally was just working on the wall, and now he's in charge of all of the workers, right? So one day, while Jeroboam it says in the Bible, there in 11, Jeroboam is leaving Jerusalem, he gets approached by a prophet on the road. And the prophet's name is, again, like I said, they get worse and worse, the names do. The prophet's name is Ahijah. 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 And Ahijah says, hey, I want to talk to you, Jeroboam. Come over here into this field where no one else can see us or hear us, and we're going to have a little talk. So now we've got, obviously, this guy who's in charge of all the labor forces, Jeroboam, and this prophet that he just so happened to run across on his road out of Jerusalem. Ahijah has on this spanking new awesome cloak, right? Like a robe or whatever. He takes it off, and he rips up his brand new cloak into 12 pieces. And those pieces are supposed to represent the 12 tribes of Israel. If you guys are familiar with the Old Testament, there were 12 tribes, right? I don't know if you guys have ever heard this or not. There's 12 of them. They're all supposed to be unified and be underneath the house of David, Saul, David, Solomon, whatever, right? Under the kingdom. He says to Jeroboam, Ahijah talking, rips it up into 12 pieces and goes, listen, Solomon has royally screwed up. He was following the Lord like his father before him, But lately, he's got the kingdom following multiple different gods. They've really gone off their way. They're not following his commandments anymore. They're probably, I'm making an assumption here, probably not doing the same sacrifices they were supposed to. If you're not following his commandments, that's one of the things you're supposed to do. So he looks at Jeroboam and says, God's gonna take 10 of these tribes, taking 10 of the pieces of the cloth, hands it to Jeroboam and said, God's gonna give you 10 of those tribes. He's not gonna give you all of the tribes out of honor and respect for how much God loves David, which is crazy, right? David is, at this point, a generation earlier. David's long gone at this point. But David was so good following the commandments, following the teachings, following the Lord, and having an actual relationship and leading his kingdom to have a relationship with the Lord, that out of respect for that, God said, Solomon's really messed up, but I'm not gonna take away everything from him because I loved his dad so much. I'm gonna give away 10 to you, Jeroboam, and I'm gonna keep 1. The math doesn't add up, I'll get there. I'm gonna take 1, the house of Judah, and Solomon's gonna keep this 1. So it's gonna be 10 on 1, right? And Jeroboam, I can only imagine, is sitting there in this field, thinking he's going home from work for the day, going, what? Like, I'm like now getting 10 of these tribes. What are you saying to me? Well, word gets back to Solomon. How many of you guys think Solomon was super okay with this news? Exactly. So Solomon goes, I think I'm gonna kill you. So he goes after Jeroboam, and Jeroboam flees to Egypt, which is not the first or the last time we're gonna see somebody fleeing for their life to Egypt in the Bible. So Jeroboam is now hiding off in Egypt because he doesn't want to get killed by Solomon, who's angry that God took away some of his tribes, even though it was his fault because he wasn't following the Lord, whatever. You guys are all following along, right? Okay. So that's where Jeroboam's at. Jeroboam obviously had good unity with the Lord. It even says there in 1 Kings 11, Ahijah's talking to him and says, if you will keep all of the commands of the Lord, he will bless you, and essentially he's gonna build up a nation under Jeroboam that would be the kingdom of Israel. Like he's saying, like, I'm gonna give you the keys, man, except for Judah, because I love David so much. As long as you will keep my commands, Jeroboam, you're gonna be the guy. So that's super impressive. And if you're Solomon and Rehoboam, Solomon was super mad, and then Rehoboam follows along when his dad passes away, and he's also, I would imagine, super mad at the guy who divided the country. Well, he's blaming Jeroboam for his own sin, right? Well, Solomon reigned for 40 years. 40 years later, dude dies. And we get his son, Rehoboam. Rehoboam is, I don't know how to explain him, very stupid. That's probably the best way I'm gonna put this. He is a fool, and I'll get into why. Rehoboam is gonna be named the king. So we've got this place in the Bible when the kings are getting anointed, new kings, they go to this place called Shechem, all right? Solomon dies, Rehoboam's gonna be the new king. Hey, everyone here, the whole tribe, everyone's gonna be gathering here inside Shechem. Jeroboam, I know the names are confusing, Jeroboam hears about it and comes all the way back from Egypt and says, you know what, this land is not being unified right now, right? The house of Israel or the tribes of Israel have been divided. And I think that we should be. So he goes and requests to get in front of the new named king, Rehoboam. And Jeroboam says to him, hey man, your dad, Solomon, was super, super tough on us. I mean, the yoke that we had to carry was very, very heavy. Is there any way you could lighten that up a little bit? Like maybe if you would lighten that load of that yoke, we will serve you for the rest of our days. That sounds like a sweet deal, doesn't it? I mean, how many of you guys would take that deal? Really? Okay, so all of you are stupid. But you hear what I'm saying. They said, hey, if you'll just lighten our load a little bit, we will serve you for the rest of our days. Essentially, we will be unified again. We were disunified from the Lord, or the leadership was. The Lord then split the kingdom off, right? He split it. Jeroboam's going to get 10. Judah's going to go with the king in the house of Solomon, the house of Rehoboam. They show up and said, if you'll just lighten our load, we'll all come back and we'll serve you forever. That seems like a sweet deal to me. Like, if you're the king, wouldn't you rather have all 12 tribes unified, worshiping, and be happy in one giant euphoria or utopia, right? Thank you. So, Rehoboam, for some reason or another, can't make that decision like that. He says, what if you left for 3 days and then came back and I'll have an answer for you? Don't know why the guy needed 3 days to figure out an answer that seems so simple to us. I mean, you guys figured it out in like 34 seconds. So they go off for 3 days. During these 3 days, we've got Rehoboam, who's got to think like, all right, do I want to be nice and have all these people serve me for the rest of my days or not? So he calls in godly counsel. These guys are like the wise men, the elders who were giving advice. It says there in 1 Kings 12, it says they were the people who were giving advice to his dad, who we've already established was the wisest man who ever walked on earth. So if A equals B, B equals C, A equals C, right? If he's the wisest man ever, and these are the guys that the wisest man ever was taking counsel from, you'd assume that they're probably pretty wise, right? Right, exactly. You would, listen, we're not that dumb. We all could figure that out. So he asks them, hey, what do you guys think I should do? And they said, this is in, I think we're in 1 Kings 12. I don't even know what verse it is, somewhere in there. They say, if you will just serve them this one time, essentially, if you'll just humble yourself, I know you're the king, you're the new king, but if you just serve these people and lighten their yoke, their load, don't be so hard on them, dude, you got them. They're going to serve you for the rest of their lives. Sounds like a simple deal. Rehoboam, being the brilliant mind that he is, says, yeah, but like, maybe not. So he sends them off. And then he looks at his buddies. No joke, it says this in the Bible. The guys who grew up with him, these are his friends. Like, we went through some stuff together, guys. Like, we were all chasing the same girls, whatever the case is. Like, these are the idiots who grew up with this idiot. And he says to them, what do you guys think I should do? And these guys look at him and say, listen, man, your dad punished them with whips, right? What if you punish them with scorpions? Right, these dum-dums said, well, what if you just spit it back in their face? And we're like, screw that, I'm not gonna help you guys. I'm gonna make it worse. And Rehoboam goes, yeah, you guys are really convincing. That makes a lot of sense. I think I'm gonna do that. Makes no sense to me, but made perfect sense to him. So 3 days later, what happens is Jeroboam shows back up, right? And they got all the tribes of Israel, they're all there. And they said, hey, what's your answer? And Rehoboam looks at Jeroboam, knowing that the wise counsel of Solomon told him to do this, right? Those counselors. And then his idiot friends who he grew up with told him to do this. And he went, I want this door. So he looked at Jeroboam and said, listen, my dad punished you guys with whips. I'm going to punish you with scorpions. Dope, right? So Jeroboam takes his 10 kingdoms, or 10 tribes, and goes north, flees into the northern country. So now we have a completely divided nation, not unified at all, right? This is where we're standing in the story. Rehoboam, who is the new king, has the tribe of Judah, which the Lord gave him because he loved David, his grandpa, so much. And then the tribe of Benjamin, who are like a free agent in this whole deal. It makes no sense, guys. I read it like 4 times. I could not figure out why the tribe of Benjamin went anywhere. Because there's 12 tribes, 12 cloths, only 10 went here, 1 went here. What happened to the last guys? It's Benjamin, and they're like a free agent, I guess. So he gathers up all the warriors of the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Benjamin, and we got 180,000 warriors. So Jeroboam has got 180,000 warriors from these two tribes, and he's ticked. He's really gonna go and live up to that scorpion punishment thing. And he's about to go charge north to go get his people back. Does not sound very unified to me. Does it to you guys? No, not at all. Right now, we are at the verge of Israel going into a civil war. Do you guys know what a civil war is? Not the civil war, but a civil war. You do. Civil war is when two teams of the same nation are fighting against each other, right? It's internal fighting. That's what a civil war is. It's not two different nations. One nation split in half, both fighting each other. Our civil war was North and South, Confederates and the Union, right? It's been a while. This civil war would be 10 tribes up here, 2 tribes down here fighting against each other. Not at all unified. Now this whole thing happens, we're gonna go back. This whole thing happens because Solomon, I guess, flipped over the first domino. Solomon flipped over that first domino when he was leading the country away from God's commands, and he started worshiping those other gods, which would be disunity with God. That's where it all starts from. All disunity that we're going to talk about tonight starts with disunity from God. Solomon was great, super wise, but if you look, his time in charge led the people of Israel further and further away from the Lord. And that disunity really made the Lord mad, super mad. So mad that he went to this new guy, Jeroboam, and said, I'm gonna give you 5/6 of my people. I'm gonna give you 10 of these 12 tribes, right? Disunity with the Lord leads us to having disunity with others. We have to be in unity with everyone. And I'm not trying to sit up here like a hippie and say peace and love to everybody, whatever, far out. Like that's not what this is. I'm saying we need to be unified with all people because that is what we're told to do. Whether that's fighting with our friends at school, fighting with our parents. I'm not gonna ask the question, but I'm sure if I was to say who here has a divorced household, there'd be a lot of names. I have a divorced household. My parents were divorced when I was like 5. Divorce happens because there's disunity inside the marriage. No matter what happened, no matter what the case is, there's disunity, and that's what a divorce is. It's the final blow, if you will, within that disunity. It says in, you want to pull 1 Corinthians 1:10 for me? Thank you. I appeal to you, dear brothers and sisters, by the authority of our Lord Jesus Christ, to live in harmony with each other. Let there be no divisions in the church. Rather be of one mind, united in thought and purpose. Right there it says, let there be no divisions in the church. There is so much division in the church today. I mean, this doesn't really pertain to any of you guys right now, but where you're sitting used to be pews, like old wooden church pews, right? And they had, I believe the cushions on them were blue, bright blue. And I think there was blue carpet up here before this had, nice wood up here. Everything was ugly blue. And that made so many people mad. Can you imagine fighting over blue pews? I can't imagine fighting over anything like that. That's crazy. Or some churches fight over the stained glass windows. Again, can I even imagine? I can't imagine caring. Some people will fight over church having on Saturdays or not. Church should not be on Saturdays, Sundays only. You shouldn't wear jeans. There should be no drums in the band. This is the way it should be. These are all stupid things that cause disunity and division within the church. And if we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're not being very productive and efficient for spreading the gospel. And that sounds like something exactly what Satan wants. Fight all day long about the pews. You're not going out and telling people about Jesus. That sounds like perfect way for Satan to attack the church. That disunity, right there. Let there be no divisions in the church. Rather be of one mind, united in thought and purpose. And the purpose of the church is to push the gospel out, preach, baptize, and disciple. That's the purpose. And when we have division in there, it says right there, we're not doing the purpose. We're fighting amongst ourselves, which is the dumbest thing ever. We're supposed to be unified with everyone else. unified within our families, with our friend groups, unified within the church, unified within our marriages. Doesn't mean we're not in disagreements, but at the end of the day, we know that we need to be unified inside a marriage. You guys will get there someday. Nick, can you pull up Hebrews 12 for me, 14 and 15? All right, here we go. Work at living in peace with everyone and work at living a holy life. For those who are not holy will not see the Lord. Look after each other so that none of you fails to receive the grace of God. Watch out that no poisonous root of bitterness grows up to trouble you, corrupting many. So we're supposed to have no divisions within the church, right? But then the question comes, or what if they're not part of the church? What do we do then? What about people that are lost? Are we supposed to have unity with them, or are they fair game for us to go and fight with? No, we're supposed to have unity with all people. I'm not going to go into politics tonight, but you guys have all had history class, right? You guys have all heard about wars. How many of you guys would say wars would not exist if people were unified with each other? I would hope everyone in here is smart enough to realize war only happens because of divisions between people, right? Like if Hitler liked Jews, World War II wouldn't have happened. You know what I mean? Like there was division and disunity there. Cam, hold it together. That's what happens with war. That's all of those divisions, everything you guys are seeing in the world. I'm not saying any of you are going to go cause a war. What I'm saying is that division, that disunity, it's amongst other people and it escalates and it blows up big time. I'm going to quickly tell you guys a story. My goal was to try and not be as long as last time. I think last time I was up here, I don't think I talked to you guys about my new roof. I didn't, right? Perfect. All right, let me tell you guys a stupid story that's gonna make me look like an idiot and make Lindsay look really good, so you guys are gonna love it. We just bought a new house in August, and when you go through buying a house, what you do is, hey, I'm interested in this house, whatever, you put in an offer, they accept your offer, and then you have to have the house inspected. So what we did is we found some inspector. This guy's job is literally to inspect new homes. So he comes over, he gets it's weird. He turns on all the faucets, turns on all the things and looks under every little nook and cranny. He got up in the attic, which my attic is not very big. I don't fit up there. And he was on his stomach, taking pictures of everything, whatever. He comes down and says, all right, hands Lindsay and I this paper that says, here's all the things that are wrong with the house. So that we know, it's like an insurance policy, so that we know what we're getting into, right? Lindsay and I are about to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this house. We want to make sure we're not buying a lemon. So the inspector gets up there and says, hey, some burner doesn't work on the stove. Big deal, we'll use one of the other burners. Maybe he says the shingles are a little old or whatever the case is. And he said, all right, for the most part, there was some mold in the attic, so we asked the sellers to take care of the mold. Whatever, no more mold, don't worry, I'm fine. So that's what happened with the house. Then the sellers, I'm teaching you guys a lot about economics right now. The sellers have to fill out this paperwork. And there's this thing that says disclosures. So what they have to do is disclose is tell the truth. If there's anything wrong with the house that they know of, they have to put it down on this. One of the questions says, does the roof leak? And if your roof leaks or if your roof has had any leaks, you're supposed to say, yes, in 2014, in the month of March, it leaked, but we got it fixed. Whatever, right? Lindsay and I sold our house, and I had to answer a bunch of stupid questions like that. I'd be like, well, one time when it rains really heavy, there's a little leak in the basement in the crack. I thought it was going to scare off. I talked about this at camp. I thought it was going to scare off our buyers. It didn't. So anyway, our disclosures, the guy said, no roof leaks, we're all fine. Had the house inspected, says we're all fine. Awesome. So, I don't know, was this a month ago? Is Lindsay still in here? I don't know. A month ago, Lindsay, I was eating breakfast. You left for the day. It was raining. And I remember sitting there eating my breakfast. It's just me and Kobe, the dog, and I hear this and I look up, and I'm like, well, that sounds like water hitting the inside of my drywall in my ceiling in my living room. That's not good. So I get out a ladder, I get up there, and I put my ear as close as I can. I'm like, yep, that's water, and I'm poking it. It's all soft. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? From my house, what the room above that is a bedroom. There's no plumbing, so I knew it's not like the sink was leaking upstairs. So I'm mad at this point. I'm mad because I just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on a house. The seller said it doesn't leak. The inspector said it didn't leak. And obviously I'm sitting here eating my eggs and it leaks. So you can see where you'd be mad, right? I was super mad, probably the maddest I've been in since I was like 15. Like it was just me and Kobe and I'm screaming out of anger. Like I was so mad. I got in my car, drove like 100 miles per hour to Home Depot to get a tarp because I'm like, I'm gonna put a tarp on my roof and somebody's gonna pay for this and it's not gonna be me, which, dumb. So I'm mad. Lindsay's at work at a church. So think about it from her point of view. Her entire day is full of like God and Jesus and worship music. And I'm sure worship music's playing in her office. And her husband calls up and he's like, I'm gonna kill this guy. This guy's the worst. Talking about the seller of the home who lied to me on the paperwork. If the guy would have been honest, I would have had him fix it. But he said, no, it doesn't leak. And obviously my drywall has now there's different colors popping up all over the place. And I get up really close and you can see where the guy, he painted over the watermarks with clear or with new white paint to try and hide it from us. And that made me even more mad. And then there's a thing called a moisture meter. You can get this thing with two prongs and you stick it into drywall and it'll tell you if it's wet or not. So I can get up there and I can see where that guy had a moisture meter. And anywhere where he stuck up his moisture meter, he just painted over it and then lied to us saying, yeah, the house is fine, doesn't leak. Which every single thing that I found made me even more and more and more mad. I was heated. So bad, Lindsay hung up on me. And I was so mad, guys. It was not cool. But I'm mad because I'm like, dude, I don't have any money left. I put it all in the house thinking I bought a house that was fine. As it turns out, I got lied to by two different people. So now I've got no money to fix the roof that's leaking. It's a big thing. So I go to some advice. I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm way over my head in this. So I go to some advice with my parents, some people at the church, friends at the gym, whatever. And a lot of people are saying, you need to sue him. You need to lawyer up and go sue this guy. And I'm like, yes, I do. Yes, I do. I'm not paying for this. Somebody else is going to pay for lying. I should not have to pay out of my own pocket for this. So I am, at this point, in my heart, I'm already disunified from this guy. This guy's dead to me. He should be in jail. I'm done with him. I wanted to go over to his house and punch his face in. It was bad. It made it worse is I was still at home listening to the water drip in. There's nothing I could do about it. Oh, it was bad. Anyway, so there's no unity whatsoever inside my heart for this. And Lindsay's upset too, but she's not at all to the level where I'm at. Lindsay's still following the Lord and all this. She goes, should we be suing? Is that really what the Bible says we should be doing? Is that really going to be showing him Christ? And I'm like, I don't give a crap about Christ right now. Are you kidding me? I was that mad. Again, said I was the idiot in this story. I preface it with that. Lindsay's the one in the right. I was the one in the wrong. I'm just being honest, telling you guys where I was at in my own heart. I was so mad. But at the end of the day, we did not get a lawyer. We did not sue. And we did not hinder this guy from seeing God's grace in this. I know this guy's sitting in his new house somewhere in Holly, in his nice dry house, counting the money that I gave him. Just laughing all the way to the bank while I'm sitting at home with a wet roof. But you know what? That's okay, because that's what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to be unified in my heart, which you can tell I'm still struggling with. But I'm not a hindrance in this guy seeing the grace of God. If I would have gone to his house and punched him in the face, he knows Lindsay works at a church. He knows I go to church. He'd be like, this is what Christians are, right? That's not what we're called to be. And I'm sure I'm not alone in this. You guys have been mad before and wanted to act on that anger. You guys have been hurt before and you wanted to act on that anger. I don't know what it's at, coaches, teachers, siblings, friends, bullies, whatever. All of us have been in that situation before and we're not unified in our own heart. But when we do that, we're holding people back from seeing God. And if I'm supposed to be the example of what Christ is, I was not in that situation. But I need to be, and we all need to be, because we're called to be unified. So we got disunity from the Lord causes disunity with others, right? There's one more thing I want to talk about in this story, and that is going back to our awesome Rehoboam and his idiot friends. Having good, godly counsel in our life. I would like to say that I had poor counsel in this roof situation. It was good counsel from my wife and like one other person, but everyone else said, get a lawyer and sue, which was not good counsel, right? Rehoboam had counsel from his friends that said, what if you just punished them with scorpions? The dumbest thing ever. He had the wisest men in the land who were literally the counsel for his wise father, and he essentially spit in their face and went with his friend's advice just because he grew up with them and knew them. Guys, it is so important for us to have wise counsel, wise godly counsel in our life. So important. When you guys are struggling with real issues, real problems in your life, I know the easy thing to do is go ask your friends, right? How many of you guys ask your friends for advice on things all the time? I'm sure, exactly, raise your hands. Everyone in here does it because that's the easy thing to do. These people know us. Hey, I hate that teacher. Why? Because he gave me an F. Well, and my friend got the same F, so now all of a sudden we're unified together in hatred for this teacher, right? But how many of you guys would say you and your friends are immature? Thank you. Thank you. So listen to what we're saying. We all admit that we're immature, but yet we still go to those immature friends for advice. We're just as dumb as Rehoboam with his friends. We do it. I do it too. I literally went to some guys who are lost at the gym and said, what should I do about my roof? What did I think they were going to say? One of them said we should pull up to his house and beat him up. One of the guys I work out with said that. Did not do that, but like, what was I thinking? Like, the guy doesn't know the Lord. He's not going to have godly advice for me, right? That's what Rehoboam did. Rehoboam went to the immature, non-wise, not godly friends of his and got advice. And you know what that advice did? It led him all the way back to where we ended here in 1 Kings, on the verge of a civil war inside the kingdom of Israel. That bad advice that he got and him not being smart enough to listen to the godly counsel of those elders has led to Israel being divided and on the verge of killing essentially their own family members, right? They're all part of the tribes of Israel. And now they're about to go to war against each other because he would not listen to the advice that the godly people said. Again, I'm not saying you guys are going to get to the point where civil war is happening because of your choices, but we need to be super careful about where we get our advice from. You guys all have leaders in here. Your leaders are leaders not just because they're older than you, but because they've got more life experience than you. They know things. They've been in your seat. Cam literally was. Cam, I think I've talked to you like this before while you were a student. Like, Cam has been there. A lot of the leaders have been there. All of us were in high school at some point. So your issues are not new to any of us. Come to us. Come to Michael. Come to Allie. Anyone would be glad to give you guys godly counsel and advice. Because we know what it's like, and we know, and we've got the maturity based on a life experience and following the Lord, what the right and wrong things are going to be, or how to find the right answers in the Bible. Don't immediately turn to your lost friends or to your immature friends and try and get advice on things that are going to be super serious and have big repercussions on your life. Seriously, I can't even emphasize that enough. It is so important that you guys heed the words and the lessons from your leaders. I know it sounds dumb, like, I'm not going to listen to Pete, whatever. But like, no, Pete knows what Pete's talking about because Pete's been around the block several times, right? Pete is right. There you go, Pete. So tonight, when you guys go down there, we're going to ask some questions. And I want you guys to really hear what your leaders are saying because, again, they are the godly counsel that the Lord has put in your life at this period in time for a reason. All right? All right, guys, let's pray. Lord, just thank you for tonight. Thank you for this opportunity to dive into the Old Testament. And Lord, I just pray that all of us we're unified, not just with each other, Lord, but we're in unity with you. We're in our Bibles, we're praying, we're trying to follow your commands, Lord, because that's where it all starts from. Being in line with you, leads to us being in line with everything else in our life. Just be with us now in our groups. In your name, amen.